Welcome to episode 47 of the Relationship Marketing Podcast with Cody B. Today's guest is Noah St. John. Noah St. John is a keynote speaker and best-selling author who's famous for inventing affirmations and helping busy people achieve financial freedom. He's known as the guy who helps entrepreneurs make a lot more money while working less. His coaching clients have added more than $2 billion in sales as a result of working with him. His sought-after advice is known as the secret sauce for business and personal growth. As the leading authority on how to eliminate limiting beliefs, Noah delivers live programs and online courses that his coaching clients call mandatory for anyone who wants to succeed in life and business. Noah is the author of 10 books that have been translated into over a dozen languages. Noah's engaging and down-to-earth speaking style always gets him high remarks from audiences. One of the world's most sought-after experts on personal growth and professional development, Noah appears frequently in the news world, including ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, the Hallmark Channel, NPR, Parade, Women's Day, Los Angeles Business Journal, Washington Post, Chicago Sun-Times, Forbes.com, Selling Power, and the Huffington Post. And now, Cody B.
Hey everybody, this is Cody Bateman. Welcome to a new episode of our Relationship Marketing Podcast. Super excited about the guests that we have on with us today. Before we get started, you've already heard about him. Our announcer got on and spoke to you a little bit about our guest today, so I'm sure you're excited to hear from this gentleman. He and I go back many years. I've had a chance to know this guy, Noah St. John. Noah, let's just bring you on right now. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Cody. Great to be here with you today.
There he is, the one and only Noah St. John. And like I said, he and I have known each other. How long have we known each other now? It's been a lot of years.
About a decade now.
About a decade.
10 years.
And we've kind of followed each other's careers along that 10-year path and 10 or 12 years. And it's just so impressive, some of the things that you've been doing out there. And I'm really excited to have you on here today. Welcome all of our guests on here today. We're super excited. This program is about relationship marketing. It's about creating relationships with yourself as well as relationships with other people in your personal life and in your business. And a lot of times when we're focused on relationship marketing, we're focused on, how we can better our businesses, how we can, better our efforts, how we can network better, how we can make better relationship. But often we forget that the most important relationship that you will ever have in your entire life will be the one you have with yourself. And in my book, Power of Human Connection, there's 5 or 6 chapters. The last chapters in this book are all on personal development and how to create better relationship with self. The guest we have on today, Mr. Noah St. John, he's one of the best at this stuff. In fact, brand new book, Power Habits, the new science for making success automatic. I love this. We talk, in fact, in my book, we talk a lot about habits. We talk habits all the time. So when you came out with this, I was super excited. And there's been a couple of books hit the mainstream best-selling book lists about habits. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you know those books well, but this is really powerful stuff.
Thank you.
Now, I want to start by, you've written like 9 or 10 books now.
15.
So why this book now? Why? What's so important about the whole concept of habits in today's world?
Well, you're absolutely right, Cody. So yes, you're right. There's a lot of talk about habits. And of course, who we are as human beings is really primarily a function of our habits, if you think about it. And so I've been teaching what we now call the Power Habit System for really the last 20 plus years. I started my company, successclinic.com, in my college dorm room in 1997 with $800 and a book on how to do HTML. Because at that time I had 2 epiphanies that really changed my life, because I'd been studying personal growth for many years. But even though I really wanted to succeed and I wanted to make something myself, I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood. So I was painfully aware of the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The haves was everyone else in the community. The have-nots was my family. And so I really wanted to make something myself. So I just went to the library, started reading books on personal growth, self-help, Dale Carnegie, Napoleon Hill, all the classics, but I just couldn't really seem to get them to work. So long story short, at the age of 25, I actually decided to commit suicide. I decided to take my own life because I was so depressed, so frustrated, because I've been working so hard for so long and I really didn't have anything to show for it. So now at the very last moment, my life was spared. I do share that story in the book. But the long story short of that is that I decided to devote the rest of my life to serving God and serving humanity as best I could while I was still here on the earth, because I felt like I'd been given a second chance at life. The only problem was I still didn't know why I was here on the earth. So I went on another long journey, a spiritual journey, like more of an inner journey. And that's when I was reading lots of, spiritual thinkers like Ernest Holmes, Marianne Williamson, Louise Hay, people like that. Then in 1997, I had these two epiphanies where I realized what was actually missing in the traditional success literature that I've been studying and that millions of people have been studying for many, many years. And it really came down to this whole concept of what we now call the power habit system, which is what highly successful people do unconsciously that they're not even aware they're doing. So to use an example that I'm sure many people are familiar with, many of your listeners and your audience members, probably most people have read a book called Think and Grow Rich, right? Think and Grow Rich is, of course, a classic in self-help. It's written by Napoleon Hill. And what Napoleon Hill did was he interviewed all these highly successful people and said, well, so how'd you become successful? Well, you do this, 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 and this. Oh, okay. And so he wrote it down in there. That's how you become successful. Just do that, this, 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 and this. So that's all great and it's wonderful. But here's the problem. So many people have read that book and they're still not successful. So what's missing, right? So like that's what happened to me. I'm like, okay, I tried everything. How come I'm still stuck? And what we get is people come to my live events, or when when I do keynote speeches, and people come up to me afterwards and they say, Noah, I spent all this money on all these traditional success programs and I'm still stuck. And what's missing? And so that's when I realized, Cody, that, but that was one of my epiphanies that I had back over 20 years ago, was realizing that there's things that they're telling us they're doing, these highly successful people. They're not saying anything wrong. It's just that they're leaving out all the good stuff. It's kind of like that iceberg principle. There's that 5% that's visible above the surface, but the vast 95% is below the surface. It's the subconscious. So anyway, the point about power habits and the power habit system that I've shared with my clients over the last 20 plus years is that it's what highly successful people do unconsciously that they're often not even aware they're doing. So that's what it's really all about. And that's why power habits. And that's why I wanted to share this book now.
Okay. So I want to back up just for a second.
Sure.
So I hear you. I hear what you're saying. There's missing elements, all of that. I want to share with you what kind of some of my experience has been over the years in teaching and coaching people on the subject of personal development. Is that it's not so much that something's missing in the classic book as it is you're just not consistently doing what it tells you to do. I find that a lot. I find a lot of people, they get into a program and they read a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, right. Power of Positive Thinking. Those were the first two books I ever read.
Right.
And I would attribute 95% of my success mode to those two books. Because there's fundamentals in those two books. You just got to do them. And so
that's right.
Part of what I talk about is it's not so much that there's a missing piece as it is you're just not consistently, and that's a key word, you're just not consistently doing. You think that there's, and by the way, this is another challenge we have in the marketplace today is now because of social media, everybody's a guru all of a sudden.
That's right.
So I read a classic book. I read one or two classic books. It's got the fundamentals in it. I dabble my feet in doing it. I kind of do what they tell me to, but then I don't. And then I do and I don't. I'm not consistent. I don't have the staying power. By golly, there must be another 5-step plan. So I see it on social media, new 5-step plan. I buy it. See what I mean? How do you get people? And I know it's hard because, by the way, and I want to get to some of what makes this unique over other things that are out there, because I have seen some unique elements to this that I think are really cool.
Thank you.
but at the same time, it's like, dude, really? Come on. Read the fundamentals and go do them. How do you get people to be more disciplined?
Well, see, what's funny is you're saying it exactly as what I call the naturals of success would say it. If you've gotten to that part in the book where I talk about the naturals of success. So when I talk about the naturals, what I talk about is that, see, all of us, when you think about a habit, any habit or even task that we humans do, we go through the 4 stages of competence. Unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know, you don't know. Then you have conscious incompetence. That means you know you don't know. Then you have conscious competence, which means you know you know. And then you finally get to unconscious competence, which is you do without thinking. So the classic example I like to give, like in my keynote speeches or my workshops, I like to say like driving a car, right? So all of us have gone through that 4 steps. Probably if you're old enough to be watching this program or listening, you have gone through this process of driving a car. So when you came out of the womb, you didn't go, hey, where's my car? Right? Nobody said that, right? So you were unconsciously incompetent. You didn't know how to drive a car. Then you got to about age 8 or 10 and you're like, gee, I think I'd like to drive a car because I want to get away from my parents. And how do you drive a car, right? I don't know how to drive a car, right? And then you get to age about 15, 16, you take driver's ed and you become consciously competent at driving a car. And now, of course, for most folks watching this, you're unconsciously competent at driving a car, meaning you do not think about it. So literally there's hundreds and hundreds of things we do every day that you are unconsciously competent, meaning you do not think. So what I realized, Cody, is that there are a very small amount, and I mean a tiny amount of people, a small minority of human beings that are unconsciously competent at allowing themselves to succeed. And so what's fascinating about your question is the answer is actually right in your question. Why don't most people just do it? That's precisely the point. Right. Okay, because if it were that simple, then everybody would be a multimillionaire, right? So that's the very thing that is missing. That's why what some people say about me, some of my clients have said about me over the years, is that my work starts where Napoleon Hill's left off. Okay, it's not that he left anything out. He actually didn't. It's all there.
So how does yours start where his left off?
Well, because of what I just said. See, when he interviewed those people, those highly successful people back in the 20s and 30s, about almost 100 years ago now, and he basically said, well, how did you become successful? Well, I did this, 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 and this. That's their conscious thought, right? Well, I did that, and I did that, and I did that. Okay, so then how come everybody, because I really tried to follow that, see? So I was very disciplined. When you talked about most people not having discipline. Remember, I'm a former professional ballet dancer. You don't get into ballet if you're not very disciplined and you can't take pain, because ballet is all about pain, physical and emotional. So the point is, I said, okay, I really tried to make it work, but why didn't I make it work? So what I realized is that the missing piece, and this is what thousands of people have told me over the last 20 years, is that, yes, this is how to succeed, but what I'm teaching is how to give yourself permission to succeed. That was actually the title of my very first book, published by the Chicken Soup people, called Permission to Succeed. Because what I realized is that they're giving us the how-tos and they're all correct. But what if there's something inside of me that's holding myself back from allowing myself to succeed? So this is something that really was never talked about before, my work that I've been doing over these last 2 decades. And that's why we've helped our clients add over $2.2 billion so far, because they had spent all that money doing all those traditional things, but there was something missing, and that's why they were stuck.
So isn't the real difference between level 3 and level 4? So level 3 is conscious confidence. You're consciously doing the checklist.
That's right.
Where level 4 is unconscious confidence. Now you're on autopilot. You're just
right. Doing. That's correct.
So, and I teach on this too. And a big thing that comes up, okay, great, we get it. There's a level 3, there's a level 4. There's a big difference between the two.
Yes.
And you wrote the book, Power of Habits. How do you get to people out of 3 and into 4? How do you get them there?
Well, one of the ways that we do that. So, I mean, when you look at the power habit system itself, I mean, it's right here. So, I mean, I know we can't really see that, but that is the system itself. It is a series of steps and, systems, or, a framework that people have to follow in order to get to that level 4, that unconsciously competent at allowing yourself to succeed. So just to back up a second, when I grew up poor in a rich neighborhood, I grew up with what we now call poverty consciousness, which is that, well, in order to be loyal to my family of origin, I can't let myself succeed, because what if, that means that I'm not being loyal to my family? Now, notice that thought, that's not a conscious thought. It's not like, I woke up in the morning and said, you know what? I think I'm going to hold myself back from success today. I mean, nobody would ever think that. It would be insane to think that somebody would think that consciously, but there are millions of people. And that was one of the epiphanies that I had back in 1997, that I realized that there are millions of people that are suffering from this condition that I discovered and named, that I called success anorexia. Now, I know that sounds crazy to some people. They're like, success anorexia? That doesn't even make any sense. But what I realized is that for, a lot of people, millions of us, we grew up in this, or, whatever the background might be. But what happened was we realized that there are conscious ways to succeed, the how-tos I call them, but yet no one had ever shown me how to give myself permission to succeed, to actually allow it to happen. So that's the gap between, as I said earlier, the haves and the have-nots. The haves just are like, well, why wouldn't you let yourself succeed, right? That doesn't even make any sense. But for millions of people, they're like, but what if I succeed and then my family doesn't like me? Or what if I succeed and then my friends don't approve, or whatever? There's a lot of subconscious things going on. And that's how we get you. I mean, going through the process is how we get you from level 3 to level 4.
So in your book, you talk about the inner and the outer. You talk about the inner mind and then the outer mind of what's going on. And so, and this is real interesting, because again, this has been a topic of discussion in many of our events as well, is you do have that inner dialogue, that inner talk, that inner voice. Mm-hmm. You have to nourish, that's why affirmations, or affirmations, as you would say, are so important, because that's nourishment to the subconscious. So that's the inner stuff we're talking about, which some people, like you said, naturally come by. Napoleon Hill interviewed all those people. Some of those people were just natural at saying the right stuff.
That's right. That's exactly right.
And then there's the outer. Now, what I've noticed is that most people, they jump over the inner stuff and they want to go to the how-to steps. Right. It's like, okay, I need that 5-step formula on how to get more likes and more comments and more following on my social media. And if I do that, then I'm going to be massively successful.
That's right.
So they skip over the inner stuff and they jump right to the how-to stuff. And I find this a lot. That a lot of people do that and they don't succeed. That's right. And so why don't they succeed?
When you look at any human endeavor, anything that you're trying to do, there are these two components. We at my company and with my coaching, we just call it inner game and outer game. So think about two circles that are coming together, sort of in the center here. So they're overlapping circles, right? So this circle is what we call inner game. So inner game is everything that happens between your ears that you can't see directly, but you see the effects of it everywhere. So like when I'm doing workshops or leading my events, what I'll say to the audience is, what is one area of your life where your beliefs don't affect you? And of course people go, well, nowhere. And I'm like, exactly. There's no place your beliefs don't affect you, right? Your beliefs affect your health, right? They affect, your weight, your relationships, your personal, your interpersonal relationship, your social life, your money, your business. There's no place in the world your beliefs don't affect you, but you can't actually see a belief. You can only see the effects of it, right? So that's why we call it inner game. It happens in here, but you see the effects of it everywhere. Notice you can be doing really well in one area and maybe another area you're stuck or struggling. So for example, you could have really great personal relationships, but maybe your business is struggling, or vice versa, right? Or your health might be great, but you're having trouble with money. Do you see my point? So it's not like a cookie cutter, one size fits all. You have to actually look at it. So that's your inner game. Now your outer game is everything you can see directly. So looking at it like from a digital marketing perspective, like you were talking about. So that would be like your sales pages, your lead magnets, your marketing funnels, all of the, the social media stuff, right? The likes and all the blocking and tackling that we have to do as entrepreneurs, as business owners every day. You have to do all that stuff. But what happens is, as you said correctly, most people are either, they're ignoring one or the other is usually what happens, right? So what's funny is you can actually get someone who's really, really focused on their inner game.
That's right.
But their outer game is suffering. That's what I call a highly evolved broke person.
I call that getting in your closet and singing Kumbayas all day and thinking it's going to work.
Right? It's you watch The Secret. I've had people come up to me at my seminars. They say, no, I watched The Secret 37 times and I thought I was going to be a millionaire. I'm like, well, yeah, that's good luck with that. Right. But also, as you stated, we can have people that are so focused on their outer game that they ignore their inner game. Right. And I mean, there are very famous examples of that, like Elvis Presley, right? Robin Williams, Chris Farley, John Belushi. I mean, the stories go on and on. So it's not, just everyday people. It's, so-called rich and famous people too, that they had everything. They were rich and famous. Outer game was great, but their inner game suffered. And, unfortunately they lost their life. So you understand it really affects people on many, many levels.
Yeah, no question about it. So here's, and I've had a chance to talk to a lot of people in this business about this. Mm-hmm. We kind of touched on it already a little bit, but I want to elaborate a little bit more. So we live in the social media world now. Everybody seems to want to be an influencer, want to be a guru.
Yep.
Self-proclaimed experts in all of these different areas. And there's so much noise out there. There's just so much. It's daunting. It's just like crazy. So,
yes.
And it's got to be hard for you, because it's hard for me, and it's got to be hard for you because you go to write this book. You've got 20 plus years behind your belt. You've helped numerous clients generate billions of dollars in extra sales. You've been there. You've done that. You know what you're doing. You write this book and it comes out amongst all that other stuff. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, how do we like chill out here in the marketplace? You know what I mean? Because it's like,
I know exactly what you mean.
I don't know what to read anymore. It's like there's so much stuff, and everybody thinks that you got to read this book versus that book or whatever. And you as an author, how do you deal with that?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I talk about this all the time at my events, and that is, we don't live in the information age. We live in the information overload age, right? We passed the information age 20 miles back. I mean, we are all on overload, as you stated. And so that's one of the biggest things that people come to me with today is exactly what you're asking, Cody, is, how do I just cut through the clutter? And how do I know who to listen to? How can I know who to trust? Because, I mean, there's a fake guru every 5 seconds. I mean, it's just really, really awful out there. And it's noisy and only going to get noisier. In fact, the CEO of Google, Eric Schmidt, said that if you were to take all the information that's uploaded onto the internet in one 48-hour period, one 24-hour period, and put it onto CD-ROMs. You remember CD-ROMs, right? I'm aging myself, but anyway, CD-ROMs, and you would put it on CD-ROMs and place that on a pile. The pile of CD-ROMs in one 24-hour period would reach from the Earth to Mars.
That's unbelievable.
Isn't that incredible? So we are literally all on overload. So, to your point about, I look at this as really a question of focus. Okay. So I argue that just the simple ability to focus today in today's overloaded marketplace, in today's overloaded information overload world, is like a superpower now, just to be able to finish what you started, right? Because, as you stated, it's so easy to start a million projects and finish none. Right. So, one of the analogies I like to give is when you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, it's like building a bridge, right? So here you are, I call it your CPR, your current perceived reality. This is where you are. You are who you think you are, and you are where you think you are. And you want to get to your NDR, which is your new desired reality. That's your pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And so in order to get from your CPR to your NDR, you got to build a bridge, right? Because there's a gap, there's a chasm there. What happens is somebody says, oh, I saw, she did Facebook, and I know I should do Facebook. So you start building a bridge that says Facebook. And then it's like, oh man, that's a lot harder than she said. Oh man, and then you go back to the beginning. I know, I'll do Twitter. Oh man, that's and you get what ends up happening for so many people is they got 20 half-built bridges, right?
That's right.
And what good is a half-built bridge? Nothing, right? I mean, you go, it's flat, right? So that's the point. Is I say to my clients, I say to my events all the time. I said, I would rather see you have one done bridge, one finished bridge, than 20 half-built bridges. Yeah. And that's really, really hard. So just to use a quick example. When I wrote this book, when I wrote Power Habits, one of the ways that I write my book, because people ask me all the time, how'd you write 15 books? How did you get published by Hay House and HarperCollins and Simon & Schuster and Mind Valley and Chicken Soup and all these publishers? I said, I just focused. one of the things that I did was I turned off my phone. What?
Yeah.
And people think, they go, what? And I don't have my phone in the bedroom at night. I don't have it in there, and half the audience just fainted dead away. And so you get my point, just simple things like that, but they're so hard right now because these things, Cody, I call them the IDDs, the infinite distraction device.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
We all have we live in a world of infinite distractions. So just to be able to focus is a superpower. And, that's one of the things we talk about all the time.
It was a real eye opener for me the other day. We have this pool in our backyard, and long story short, we had some problems with the piping that goes into the pool, and the piping was under concrete. So we had to tear out the concrete. Of course, we paid people to come in and do this. We tore out the concrete, and then we had a guy come and dig it all out. Long story short, crazy project, fixed it. But the guys that tore out the concrete, they left the concrete on my other concrete, like 6,000, 7,000 pounds of concrete in big slabs is stacked on my concrete. And I called the guy and said, dude, you're going to crack my concrete. You got to come back and get this concrete out of here. And he says, oh, all my guys are gone hunting this weekend, so they're gone. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? And he's like, I can't get there till Monday. I says, well, it's not going to last till Monday. So long story short, my wife and I went out and we moved the concrete. And we're talking big slab, 200, 150, 200 pound slabs of concrete. We're picking up and putting it in a trailer that I had, hauling it off to the dump. And I could have been really upset about that, but it was interesting. It was actually kind of a blessing in disguise because during that process, it was a daunting project. It was like this big, huge pile of concrete. How in the world are we ever going to move it? I don't have the equipment, don't have the stuff. I've got a trailer, but I don't have stuff to put it in. But long story short, what did my wife and I do? Number one, we put the phones away because the phones couldn't be around us because we were lifting concrete.
Right.
Our phones were put away, and we went out and started one piece at a time, putting it into the trailer, and a couple hours later the trailer's loaded and we go off to the dump, and we one piece at a time unload it out of the trailer into the dump yard.
Wow.
So this is a 4-hour project, but here's my point. My point to it is that was 4 hours of undivided focused attention on physical manual labor. Right. And we were able to get what seemed like an impossible task completed. And it was a real eye-opener to me because you're right. I fall into the trap you said a minute ago. I fall into the trap of this nonsense.
Yeah.
I think we all do to some extent. We all fall in. See, look, those on YouTube, I just posted this up. I'm tempted to look at it because when I put my phone up, this thing popped up saying something happened. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So it took me to go back to lifting slabs of concrete to get my focus, realizing that undivided attention. Same thing as when I wrote this book, I did the same thing as you. I just turned the phone off. But the best button on the phone is the airplane mode. Click airplane mode, and then it doesn't bother you. And then you time block, and how else do you get anything done?
That's right.
And isn't that a habit? Wouldn't time blocking be a habit?
Oh, no question. And, one of the things, it's so funny you talked about moving concrete, because one of the things that, we share with our clients is I call it the yellow brick road. I talk about laying bricks because, when you're as an entrepreneur or a business owner, we talk about the 4 major milestones that you hit specifically with your online business. The first is when you make your first $1 online. When you make your first $1 online, that's an exciting day. Right. The second milestone is when you make your first $10,000. Then you're really an entrepreneur. When you make your first $10,000 in your online business, or any business, if it's brick and mortar too. Now it's no longer a hobby. Now it's a business. Yeah. Then the third milestone we look at is when you're making 100K a year. That's like 10K a month, right? So that's when you're like an expert. You're like, okay, I got this. I'm making 10K a month. And, fewer than 40% of all American businesses are making 10K a month. And then the fourth major milestone is when you hit the $1 million. When you hit that million, which is, the jackpot, And, everybody, of course, you celebrate, and it's very exciting, when you hit that $1 million. But so the point is that everybody, of course, wants to just jump right to the end, right? Oh, I just want the million, right? Well, no kidding. Of course, we all want the million. We all want all that stuff. And that's one of the reasons on social media. Why do you think the so-called gurus are posting all those pictures of, their sports cars and their watches and all this stuff? It's like, oh, look how cool I am. And that's great. Look, we all want nice things. We all want to take care of our family, go on fun vacations and things like that. We all want to have nice things. But the point is that so many people just think that you can just get right to the end. And the point about, again, we call it laying bricks, it's very unsexy. It's very not fun usually. It's very like grunt work. But if you don't do it, if you don't lay the foundation, then, and in both your inner and outer game, then you do have, either you're just not going to get there in the first place, or if you do get there, you might sabotage yourself, like a Robin Williams, like a John Belushi, the examples that I was giving before. So, I mean, it's really very important. And, being a former professional ballet dancer, I realized that, I've always just been very, very disciplined. That's one of my superpowers, if you wish, writing all these books and so forth, and creating a lot of, online programs and live events and so forth. So that's really, that's one thing I do naturally, but I realize that for a lot of people, it is really hard. Yeah. And so one of the things that I tell people to do is you've got to keep your eye on the prize. Whatever your next milestone is, that's why I was mentioning those milestones, whatever your next milestone is, if you really want to get there, well, then that's got to be paramount for you. I use the example of Tom Brady, the great quarterback, from the New England Patriots, who most would argue is the greatest of all time, the GOAT, in professional, National Football League. And he always says, people ask him, what's your favorite ring? What's your favorite ring? And what's his answer? The next one. Yeah. The next one. So, that's what keeps him going at age 42 when most have long retired. That's just one simple example of that.
Another amazing thing is you talk about the New England Patriots when they interview Tom Brady or Bill Belichick, who's the coach of the Patriots. It's very interesting because I think the way that they answer questions is a real segue, or it's a real clue into what you teach. Hey, Bill, you had this problem or you had that problem, and next week you face the best team in the league, and how are you going to do this and that and and they want to spell out all these issues that are going on. That's what the media does, but that's what life does. Yeah. Life gives you all the issues, all the stuff, all the negativity, all the challenges, all the problems. And how do you overcome this adversity? And this player went down, he's injured, and now what are you going to do? How are you going to replace him? I love the way Bill Belichick answers questions because he is so no nonsense. He's like, I don't know about any of that stuff. All I know is we got to get ready for next week's game. That's his answer.
Exactly.
That's all I know. All I know is we're going to watch film on the next team, and we're going to go through our fundamentals, and we're going to practice hard and get ready for the next game. And he answers the same way every single time. Isn't that the essence of what you're talking about?
Laser focus. If you watch the NFL film on the Super Bowl where the Patriots were down 28-3 in the third quarter, and of course ended up mounting the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history and ended up winning the game. If you look at Brady on the sideline while they were down 28-3, they had a 0.4% chance of winning. 0.4%. I mean, that's not very good, and he literally just said to his guys, laser focus. That was all he kept saying, laser focus, just one play at a time, laser focus. That's not sexy. You can't score a touchdown on every play, right? Yeah. I mean, that's why sports, we use these analogies all the time because sports is a microcosm of life. Sports, and that's why, speakers and teachers and authors like me like to use sports as an analogy, not that it's the greatest thing ever. It's a microcosm. It's like life in a nutshell. And so anyway, the point about that is that ability to focus is one of the things that separates, when you talk about great teams or great players or great entrepreneurs from everyone. It is that ability to focus. I mean, of course, there's a lot more to it. You still have to be good at what you do and all the rest, the talent. But really, with this world of infinite distractions, I still believe that just these simple, and it sounds so simple, but it's really hard nowadays, the ability to focus will really be one of the things that can catapult you to your next milestone, whatever it might be for you.
No question about it. So zip lines, you've had some experience with zip lines. I want you to take us through that story. I love the story about you and your honeymoon, and
Yes.
Apparently your wife is the adventurous one and you're the more cautious one. So tell us about your zip line experience.
Yes, absolutely. So when I was, when I proposed to my beautiful wife, Beth, who you've met, and I said to her, we're going to go, I'm going to take you on a Caribbean cruise and we can do any excursion you want, right? I wanted to just shoot the works, all excited. And she says, oh, goody, I want to go zip lining. Now, of course, for those of you who don't know what zip lining is, it's an adventure sport for insane people. So what you do is you put on, you strap yourself on this tiny little line that looks like it could hold a canary, and you strap yourself on, you go zip lining, and it's insane. So I had zero desire to do it, as you said, I mean, I'm a total nerd. I'm probably the nerdiest nerd in this industry, because my idea of a fun time is just curling up with a good book and looking at how things work together and piece it back together so that anybody can use it. And that's one of the reasons that I love what I do, because I get to be that nerd and help people and watch them grow. But she's an adventure junkie and, of course, ziplining. So I said, okay, fine. In my head, I'm going, oh my gosh, how can I get out of this, right? So, but we got to the island of St. Kitts, beautiful island in the Caribbean. It's just a jewel, but I couldn't enjoy it because I was so nervous about my ziplining adventure about to happen. So we got to the place, and these trainers, big, strong guys, and they gave us this training, and they showed us pictures of grandmas and little kids that had done it before. And I'm going, really, you're going to guilt us into this now? And, so they gave us this training and all the gear and stuff. They put us in a truck, and we drove up and up and up this mountain, right, in the Caribbean rainforest. So like a mile and a half, 2 miles up of this mountain. And I'm getting more and more scared, more and more nervous. We pile out of the truck, get up to the platform. One of the big guys, he gets on the line, he hooks himself on, and he turns to us and he says, okay, we'll see you on the other side. And he goes bzzz, out into infinity, right? He just disappears. And I'm like, oh boy. And then another guy looks at me and he says, okay, you're next. And I'm like, me? Why do I have to go next? I don't want to go. And so I got to the edge of the platform. I'm looking down into infinity, and I just heard my head say, I heard this in my head. I heard it say, we are definitely going to die. Right now, we're definitely going to die right in front of my bride, and that's it. That's the end of the story. But then I realized, in that moment, I realized I had three choices. The first was, I could just say, you know what, I am too scared, I can't do it, and just forget the whole thing and go back. But then, of course, I realized, well, I couldn't actually do that because the truck had already left. And what am I going to do? Walk down 2 miles on a mountain? I could get eaten by crocodilators or whatever. I mean, we don't know. So I'm like, I can't go back. And then I said, well, I could just stay right here and say, well, I'm too scared and I'm not going to go forward. And then, of course, I realized, well, they can't do that either. What are they going to do? Leave me at the top of a mountain? I mean, that's insane. And so I said, well, I can't do that. And then I thought about it for a second, and I said, now, wait a minute. Now, first of all, we saw pictures of grandmas and little kids that did it, and they didn't die. Yeah. So maybe I won't die. And then we just saw a big, huge guy, big, strong guy that went in front of me, and he didn't die. We didn't hear, splat, right? So we didn't hear that. So maybe I won't die. And then I said, they probably have, training and safety precautions. I'm not the first person to do this. So I said, maybe I won't die, right? So one of the things I love to use that story with my audiences, because I'll often say to them, do you ever hear something in your head that actually wasn't true? Of course, everybody laughs. Of course we do, right? We all hear that all the time, right? So I said, I heard I'm going to die, but I'm like, maybe that guy's wrong. Maybe that voice isn't right. So I said, why don't you just take that step of faith? And I took it, and of course, we had a great time. And now I lead ziplining adventures. My mastermind clients, I lead ziplining adventures. So of course, the point of the story is, and that's why I love to share this at my live events or my keynote speeches, is, you can't go back. The past is gone, right? As much as we would love to go back to the good old days, and were they really that good? Well, maybe, but they're gone no matter what. We can't stay right where we are because the clock is ticking no matter who you are, how much you want things to stay the same. They never do. So the only choice we have is to actually take that step of faith. And by the way, I often point out that I do not say take a leap of faith, right? Because a lot of motivational speakers or, whatever gurus out there will say, well, leap and the net will appear, right? We've all heard that phrase. Well, I've interviewed over 150 highly, highly successful people, millionaires, multi-millionaires, right? Even a few billionaires. and not one of them leaps and hopes the net appears.
Right.
That's insane, right? It literally doesn't make any sense. What they do is they take calculated risks,
right?
Like you in your business, you're incredibly successful and you've touched so many lives. You've had to do a lot of things where probably you didn't really know what the next step was, but yet you took a calculated risk. You didn't just leap and hope the net appears. See, right. But that's why they say it, because they say it meaning well, I think, because they're saying, well, there's so much fear in so many of us, right? And so it's like you feel like you're going to leap and then I'm like, no, but don't do that. The point about, again, going to the zipline story, there were safety precautions. They didn't just throw me out there and say, oh, I hope it works out. Good luck. You see what I mean? So that's what's funny about that story. People do enjoy that story for that very reason, because it's kind of like life, is that we can't go back. We can't stay where we are. Let's take that step of faith, but let's take calculated risk and face that fear and realize that, that voice oftentimes says things that really aren't true.
It's a great story. I love hearing you tell it. It's just a great analogy about life. So there you have it, my good friend Noah St. John. Here is his book, Power Habits. It's subtitled The New Science for Making Success Automatic. A great read. I'm not all the way through it yet, but a great read. I'm looking forward to finishing this up very quickly. So where do our followers get this?
Very, very easy to remember. It's powerhabitsbook.com. So that's what it is, Power Habits Book. So powerhabitsbook.com. And when you go to powerhabitsbook.com, you can actually place your order on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iBooks or wherever you like to get your books. And I will, when you go back to that page, to powerhabitsbook.com, just put in your order information and I'll send you a gift package that's worth up to $299. And if you order 10 or more copies, like for your team, I will actually do a Zoom training for your team. So a lot of people like to have me on and do Zoom trainings for their teams to help them, install these power habits so that they can, increase recruiting, increase sales, increase their retention of clients and customers. And really, it's really about having that power habits that will help you to not only enjoy success, but allow yourself to succeed to a higher level.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. There you have it, my friends. Noah St. John, it's been an honor to have you on with us. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I know you and I spoke at an event together.
Yes.
That was several months ago now. It's amazing how fast time goes. We had a chance to talk backstage for a minute. Mm-hmm. And I've been excited to have you on the podcast ever since then. We finally got you on. And so I'm super excited about that. Noah St. John, go to his website, go to the powerhabitsbook.com, get a copy of that. And Noah, keep doing what you're doing, my friend. You're making the world a better place. We appreciate you for it.
And you are too, Cody. It's an honor to be your friend. So thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you. Take care now. So there you have it, my friends. Another incredible episode of our Relationship Marketing Podcast. Stay tuned every week. We got a star lineup of people coming every single week, giving us golden nuggets of wisdom. And we just got to sharpen the saw and keep doing good stuff in the world. Take care, everybody. We'll see you.
If you have enjoyed this episode of the Relationship Marketing Podcast with Cody B, be sure to subscribe to the show and leave a review so that together we can get this message, The Power of Human Connection, out to the world. You can find Cody's new book, The Power of Human Connection, on Amazon or the Send Out Cards gift store.